My school I went to didn't have a CU, and when I was at uni I wasn't a Christian, so my only experience of a CU was I was very drunk walking home from a night out, and there were these people giving out tea and toast. And when you're drunk, tea and toast seems like a brilliant thing. So I went and chatted to them, and I found out they were Christians, and I was like, why are you doing this? And I just wanted to love people. And I didn't really care, I just wanted tea and toast. But that was my experience with CU, so it's quite interesting to now be here. I became a Christian when I was 22, it's now 8 years later, I'm 30. But one question that I have always wanted to explore and continue to explore is the question of Jesus. Some of you might think, well, if you're saying Jesus is God, what's the evidence? Surely first you need to prove that God exists. But I think that one of the unique contributions of the Christian faith is saying that it's not starting from the fact that does God exist? Is there an abstract concept of an all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present being? But it's actually saying there was a man in history, a man who both Christians and non-Christian historians have attested to his reality. And that man was outrageous enough to claim that he was God. And I think that's the question that meets all of us. That's the question we all need to address. He doesn't leave us, we can't just leave him alone at the side saying, no, I don't need to think about it. So firstly, how do we know he existed? Well, there is non-Christian historical evidence that Jesus existed. I'll forget the names if I don't read them out. We've got Josephus, a Jewish historian. He says that there was a man, Jesus the Nazarene, who was a great miracle worker. The Talmud is a collection of Jewish writings, and they speak of Jesus' existence. There's some Greek historians, Lucian of Samosata and Marabar Serapion. Not read either of their works, can't speak Greek. Apparently, they mention Jesus. And then some Roman historians, Thales, Tacitus, Pliny, and Suetonius. The reason I start with history is because I did a history degree. And so, as I was exploring why to be a Christian, one of the important things to me was, well, is it historically accurate? Because if he doesn't exist, if Jesus doesn't exist in history, Christianity is pointless. Christianity is false. It is not true. There are non-Christian historians who say Jesus did exist historically. There was a man called Jesus, he existed. So we've got that. The next place we can go to find out some more information about Jesus is the New Testament. Now the New Testament is a part of what Christians call the Bible. And in the New Testament there's 4 books at the beginning which are called Gospels. We don't really have the genre of Gospel in our modern day writing. The best thing we could think of is like a biography. And it's a biography written by someone else about a person's life. So a bit like Wayne Rooney's biography, but about Jesus. And he may have done slightly more than Wayne Rooney. So we have these Gospels, and we also have some letters by different Christians who were all around in the first half of the 1st century, all of which talk about Jesus. But then you might say, well, how do you know they're true? The church is a corrupt institution. It's full of liars and paedophiles and those sorts of people. They probably just put in all sorts of lies to make it what they want so that they can oppress people. It's a valid question. That's where we come to textual criticism, which is a bit of a fancy term. It's basically looking at when were the events originally in history? When did the events originally happen? And then you ask, when were they first written about? And then you ask, when were the next copies made? So if we do a bit of a contrast, first document, you've got Caesar's Gallic War, which is a very ancient text. The date between when it was written and when the first copies were found is a 950-year gap. Okay, so there's a long time between when it was written and when there was a copy made. You've got Herodotus' histories. If any of you do classics, I didn't do classics. My school wouldn't do it. But if any of you do it, you may have heard some of this. Herodotus' histories was written in the 5th century BC. It was then not until 1300 years later, in AD 900, that a copy is made of that history. And yet classicists would say these books are historically verifiable. When we look at the New Testament, when it's written between 40 and 100 AD, 40 and 100 AD, so the 1st century, various different books are written at various different times. The earliest copies we have are about 30 years after the events, about 30 years. ranging up to 300 years. So we've got quite a span. But within that, the amount of handwritten copies that we still have today available, just in Greek alone, are 5,309. The New Testament documents are very historically viable. There are scholars who would disagree with me, but I am a Christian, I'm here with that bias. I put that out straight away. I'm going to give you the Christian version of things. No one's neutral. I'm not neutral, they're not neutral. But the New Testament, I would say, with my history hat on, I think is a historically verifiable document. And the New Testament says there was a man called Jesus, that he lived, that he did some incredible things, that he died, and that he rose again from the dead. So, our first question is, did Jesus exist? Generally, most scholars, Christian and non-Christian, history scholars and theologians would all say, yes, a man called Jesus Christ existed. Therefore, the next question I think we need to ask is, what did Jesus say about himself? What do these documents say Jesus said about himself? Jesus has about 2 billion followers today. He lived about 2,000 years ago. There are millions of other people who aren't his followers who all say something along the lines of, I think Jesus was a great moral teacher. I really liked the morals, the ethics that he talked about. I think he was really spot on with how to treat people. I was one of those people. I used to say, do you know what, my mantra for life is to treat people how I would want to be treated. Jesus said it, other kind of gurus said it, and I thought that's good enough for me. I don't need to think about anything more to do with it. I'll just try and be nice. The problem was, when it hit the fan in my life and some things happened that really made me question why we're here, just being nice wasn't good enough. I needed to know more about, is there any purpose to this world and to this life whatsoever? So what did Jesus say? Well, first we've got some of his teaching. And actually a large amount of Jesus' teaching wasn't so much on the moral ethics. We'll look at that a bit later. A lot of his teaching was about God. And a lot of people, when they're talking about God, they say, look away from me and look to God. I am not worthy, look to God. But this is where Jesus is a bit odd. Jesus didn't say, look away from me, look to God. Jesus said, come to me and you will find God. He said, you have hungers and needs and desires. You want to find satisfaction in life. You want to find food that will really fill your soul, not just your material food like that orange that's very tasty right now. And he said, if you want to find that, come to me. I am the one who will give you that food. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the one who will show you how to live. I am the one who will, I am the truth. It's not just, I'll tell you about the truth. He's actually saying, I am the truth. I am the way. Come to me, and you will find God. It's actually quite an odd form of teaching. If I came up here today and said to you, come to me, I'm God, you hopefully would say, see you later, there's a new living just down the road. But then Jesus also made some indirect claims. So he told various different stories. Some of them you may have heard through RE lessons or through Sunday school. One of them is about some blokes who had a mate who was disabled. And they thought, we need to get him to Jesus, so we're going to go to a house, we're going to smash in their roof. Then we're going to lower him down through the roof, and we're going to get him to Jesus. So that's what they did. Jesus then says to this man, your sins are forgiven. It's a very old language. We don't use the word sins very much anymore. But basically, everything in your life you've done that goes against what God would want for you, I, Jesus, forgive you for that. I declare you are forgiven. The people in the room at that time thought this was outrageous. Because there's only one person, only one being who can forgive sins. That's God. So Jesus is making an indirect claim there, saying, yeah, I can forgive sins. Yeah, I can do that. He backs it up by healing me. Yeah, I can do that as well. Jesus also said, he's the judge of the world. There was a Jewish belief at the time that everyone will be involved in a resurrection, physical resurrection at the end of all time. And Jesus says that that physical resurrection at the end of all time, I will be the one who judges you all. Again, imagine if you went to a church, or imagine if someone came here and said to you, do you know what, after we've all died, and we've all come back from the dead, I'm going to judge you all. Who's got the authority to do that? That isn't great moral teaching, I wouldn't say. That's teaching that's either completely out there and crazy, or teaching that might be true. Or some would say teaching that just didn't happen because they don't really believe the Testament again. I don't think that's the case. I don't think the loon's the case. I think what he said was true. And then we have direct claims. Two major times I want to just quickly look at. One of the disciples, that's followers of Jesus, people who are trying to live and follow him and go his way of life. He was a cynic, he was a skeptic. And I'm quite a cynic and a skeptic as well, so I kind of like this story. And he heard that Jesus, who had died on the cross, who was dead, had rose from the dead. And he didn't believe it, because he didn't think that happened. And he said, the only way I'm going to believe it is if I can touch the scars on his body. That's the only way I believe it. Thomas actually gets the opportunity. Jesus turns up. They're having a meal together. And Thomas, in that reaction, falls down and says, my Lord, my God. Now Jesus, if he was a good Jew, would have said, don't call me God. I am not God. Get away. But he doesn't. He accepts it. And then in John's Gospel, we have Jesus saying, I and the Father are one. Bit of an odd statement, but essentially, Jesus is putting himself on equal status with God. So we've got some massive, massive claims. Like I said, I don't think you can just leave Jesus on the side as a great moral teacher. I actually think some of the stuff he said is really quite dangerous, and if it's not true, crazy. So what we then have to look at is, what evidence is there to support his claims? What would you want to see in someone to make you think what they're saying is truthful? And you may have heard of a guy called C.S. Lewis. He wrote the Narnia novels. You may have seen the films or read the books. He also was an atheist who became a Christian, and he wrote books kind of outlining different things and his thoughts on the Christian faith. And he's famous for saying Jesus was either a lunatic, a liar, or a lord. And you've got to choose which one. Now I added legend onto there, because if you don't think the Bible is true, he's a legend, and he's not real. So C.S. Lewis, go back and add that one on. But the other three, we're going to just look at briefly. So we come back to his teachings, his moral teachings. A guy called Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was a Christian in Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 40s, died for his faith. He says they're the most radical teachings that have ever been taught anywhere. There are civilizations that are built on these teachings. So much of what happens in our society is built on these teachings. If you ask anyone, even Stephen Fry, he would probably say Jesus' moral teachings are good teachings. Jesus is renowned as a good, ethical, moral teacher. But would people believe his ethical, moral teachings if he didn't live a life that backed it up? I'm sure you know people who they've got the gift of the gab. They're all talk, but they never actually live it out. They're hypocrites. Was Jesus a hypocrite, I guess is the question. Was he all talk, or was the proof in the pudding? Did he live what he preached? So then we look at his words, his lifestyle. And this is where it's very hard for us, in a world that is so scientifically proven. The concept of miracles is really odd and really difficult to comprehend. I didn't start to be even vaguely open to the concept of miracles until I was living in a village in Uganda. And I was living in this village in Uganda, and actually what made me think miracles could happen was that I was in the local, like in a western, when they go into a town and it's like, it was like that. The local village centre was a dirt track and just some huts. And when you walked in, everyone looked at you. Well, I was there, and one of the teachers at the school came up to me and said, Rick, look at my hand. And his hand was massive, fat and swollen. And I was like, Samuel, what has happened to your hand? He's like, I don't know. I was like, right, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to go to the witch doctor. And I was like, right, okay. So let me know what happens. Samuel comes back to me in the afternoon, shows me his hand. His hand's fine. I was like, what happened? He went, I went to the witch doctor. He healed me. That was the first time I started thinking, maybe there's more to life than just naturalist, physical explanations for everything, than I necessarily think. Just because I've got this worldview doesn't mean it's completely right. I then experienced some other things in life. My wife had her anterior cruciate ligament ripped in a footballing incident. The surgeon went in to fix it and found that the anterior cruciate ligament had been fused back together. He said, "I've never seen that happen in my entire life." He's one of the top knee surgeons in the country. So I think miracles happen. So then there's another presupposition of mine. I think miracles occur. Jesus performed a hell of a lot. He showed power over nature. He was on a boat, there was a massive storm. He said, "Storm, stop." The storm stopped. Jesus came across people who were sick. He came across lepers. And he said, "Be healed," and their skin just in front of him cleansed itself. Jesus showed power over demons, or over evil forces, evil spirits, power of evil or darkness, whatever you want to call it. He had one guy who was so messed up, he was smashing himself with chains, just cutting into himself. Jesus said, "Be gone." And the man became instantly calm and still. He showed power over evil. And ultimately, Jesus showed power over death. There's a story in John's Gospel, John's biography of Jesus, where Jesus goes up to a man who'd been dead for 4 days. He stunk in the tomb because his body was rotting. And Jesus said, "Stand up." And he stood up. Now my one question on that is, did his body still smell? Was his flesh still rotting? I don't know. I haven't got that one. But on top of his miracles, on top of his works, he also had an amazing character. People were astounded by the people he hung out with. He didn't just hang out with the wealthy and the powerful. He hung out with the downers. He hung out with the prostitutes, but also with the tax collectors. So it's the prostitutes and the investment bankers of our day. He hung out with those guys who no one else wanted to hang out with. And he showed them a love and a kindness and a compassion that people thought was unrivaled. I know for me, the test of my character is when I'm at my worst, right? A small thing happened last week which showed a real flaw in my character. Me and my wife were my wife was making cakes. And I said, "You know what, I'm going to get involved in this, I'm going to make flapjack. Because children can make flapjack, surely I can make flapjack." So I find a recipe on Google, or get the recipe, I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing this together, I like this is good." Put my flapjack in, get it out of the oven, it says to let it cool. I let it cool a bit, but I want to get onto it, eat it. Take it out of the tin, flip it over, flapjack everywhere. Things not stuck together, I have no idea why. I flip out. I get so angry, which is ridiculous, I know. But I flip out because it's something I couldn't do. Under pressure of a flapjack, my character flawed completely. Jesus was on the cross. One of the most painful forms of torture and death that you can experience. I think we're seeing him under pressure at that moment. How does he react? Jesus says, "Father, forgive them. Forgive the people who are doing this to me, for they do not know what they're doing." I think that's quite a massive act of compassion. My question to you is, are these the words and the actions of someone who is crazy? Or alternatively, do you think these are the words or the actions of someone who is evil and just trying to deceive everyone? I know what I think. The important thing is for you to think. What do you think? And finally, we've got the Old Testament. So I talked about the New Testament. But we've also got the Old Testament, which is the Jewish scriptures. And in there are about 350 prophecies that attest to someone that they would call the Messiah. We'd understand it like the Saviour, someone who's going to sort everything out. Jesus fulfilled all of those 350 prophecies, including 29 in one day. Many of things which he had no control over whatsoever. So, I have suggested to you that firstly, Jesus exists historically as a man. I've suggested that there is non-Christian evidence and Christian evidence. I have suggested that Jesus' teaching, he didn't go around with a big banner saying, "Hey, I'm God." He wasn't that obvious, but he did subtly and indirectly and sometimes directly suggest equality with God, which is something that for a Jew was blasphemous, worthy of death, and yet he did it. And he did amazing works and treated people with an amazing compassion. But we're coming up to Easter. I was told to link this talk to Easter. We're coming up to Easter. And Easter isn't just about the fact that Jesus died. Because if Jesus did all of this stuff, check the time. If Jesus did all of this stuff, but then just died. But the Christian message says he didn't just die. The Gospel says, and the reason we celebrate at Easter is because it says he rose from the dead. the resurrection. I said I believe in miracles. This is the biggest one I believe in. It is very hard to get your head around, but this is what makes all the difference. Because this is what validates everything Jesus said. I don't know if they still do it. They used to do it on England football shirts. You used to have on an England football shirt a little logo thing in the bottom corner of it that would show it was a genuine article. It wasn't a fake from the market. And so if you looked at someone and they didn't have the little thing there, you thought, that's a rip-off, mate. That ain't the real deal. I've got a really good shirt. Not that this to be proud of, because we're terrible at the moment. But anyway, the way I understand the resurrection is it's like a little shiny symbol. It's God saying about Jesus, he's the real deal. He is the right, authentic article. You can trust all the stuff he said and all that he's done. But what evidence is there to suggest, one, it happened, and two, it's true? Well, firstly, I just want to say one thing. Richard Dawkins, you may have heard of him. He's an atheist. He's not a fan of Christians or the Christian God. He did say, and I agree with him on this one, if the resurrection is not true, Christianity becomes null and void. And that is true. If you can prove the resurrection is not true, Christianity dies. It dies with the resurrection, lives and dies with it. So I'm going to try and offer you some thoughts that I think say it's true. So, firstly, Jesus died on the cross. Some people would say, well, he didn't die. They kind of slipped him down off the cross sneakily and hid him away. And that's how they did it. I'm not sure that's the case. Crucifixion is incredibly painful. He had been whipped and lashed about 40 times, so he'd lost a lot of blood already. And the Gospel of John records that they put a spear through his side. And actually, sorry if he was still eating, that'd be good. Actually, and when they pulled the spear out, there was this mixture of what they call blood and water, which medically we now know to mean it's the separation of the fluids inside of us. And it suggests that Jesus was dead. On top of that, he was put into a tomb that was owned by a man called Joseph of Arimathea. So in that culture, people of wealth used to buy tombs that were next to other great teachers and great people. Because remember I said they all believed in a massive resurrection from the dead. So they wanted to pop back up with all the people who were the great men of faith. So this guy Joseph of Arimathea bought a tomb. But he became a follower of Jesus, and he said, I want Jesus buried in my tomb. Now why is that important? It's because it was a known tomb. Some people have said that Jesus just rotted away in a hole and the dogs would have eaten his body. The Gospels record that Jesus was buried in a grave which was a known tomb. So people would have known where to look if they thought he was still in it. Another version is that the disciples from that tomb stole the body. I doubt this. The reason I doubt this is because firstly, the disciples would have been completely disillusioned. Imagine there's someone you pinned all your hopes on, someone who you think is going to solve everything for you, and they die. You'd be so gutted, so annoyed, so let down. I can't imagine that you would stump up the energy to go and fight some Roman guards who have got much bigger weapons than you have, to roll back some massive stone, to take away some stinking dead body. Alternatively, some people say that the authorities would have stolen Jesus' body. I find that hard to believe. The reason for that is because when Christians started saying Jesus is raised from the dead and started a movement, why didn't the authorities just bring out the body that they stole and said, no, he's dead, look, that's his rotten corpse. Next, alongside that, appearances. The Gospels record that Jesus appeared to people once he rose again from the dead. And one of the really interesting things is the first people he appeared to were women. Now, in our culture, fine, you can appear to women, doesn't bother me. But in a court of law in the 1st century in Palestine, sorry ladies, but you were not adequate witnesses. If a woman gave testimony in court, I wouldn't have believed it because she's a woman, regardless of anything else. So the fact that the Gospel writers said the first people to see Jesus were women is very countercultural and actually suggests a level of authenticity. Because if you were writing making this up yourself, well, you'd make it a really respectful man. That's who Jesus would first meet. He then goes and spends time with 12 apostles, and actually in one of Paul's letters, which is very certainly written by Paul, Paul says Jesus appeared to over 500 disciples. Now, some people have said, well, they're just all hallucinating. Extreme grief and extreme letdown means that you start to imagine things and you want things to be real, and you want it to be real so much that you see it happening and you hallucinate. That's a possibility. But, one, I think it's unlikely that all of these people hallucinated, all at separate times, all in different places on different occasions. Alongside that, the Gospels record that Jesus' appearances were appearances where he didn't just kind of float around like a ghost. He ate fish on one occasion, he chilled on a beach and cooked them breakfast on another occasion. Thomas actually physically touched him. They're not things that you would necessarily hallucinate about. And then finally, not quite finally, we're almost there. The disciples were very scared people. When Jesus was at the cross, they ran away, all bar John and his mother Mary. They all ran away. They weren't courageous enough to hang about for him. But what we then see as we read Acts and the letters is we see a transformation of these people. So that they go from cowardly, scared individuals into people who are willing to stand up in front of the authorities of the day and declare that they think Jesus rose from the dead and is their Lord and Saviour. He's got more authority than Caesar. Caesar is like a barman on crack in terms of authority. They were willing to say that. And then, not only willing to say that, but they were then willing to die for that. 11 of the 12 disciples died horrible, horrible deaths because they refused to denounce that Jesus was their Lord and their Saviour. They believed he was God. They believed that he was the way, the truth, and the life. And finally, they worshipped Jesus. They were first century Jews who were seriously monotheistic. By that I mean they believed in one God. And this may cause some questions to do with one God and Trinity and all sorts of headline stuff. But they started to worship Jesus because they thought Jesus was God, because of what they'd seen and what happened to him. And finally, throughout history, Jesus has been transforming people's lives ever since. My own life was transformed by Jesus. I almost died when I was 20. My brother committed suicide when I was 22, and I ended up in a place of thinking life is complete crap. And I cried out, what on earth are we here for? Jesus has given me meaning, purpose, changed me completely, transformed my life. I was so terrified of talking to people about Jesus, and he's got me to a place where I'm stood here, somehow chatting to you about that. But he's not just changed my life, he's also changed my mate Matt's life. And so Matt is now going to come and share his story, and then we're open to questions. So thanks for listening. Welcome, Matt.
Good afternoon. So my name's Matt. As you can tell from my posh accent, I'm from the north. So if you can't understand me, just come and speak to me later and try and translate what I'm actually saying. So Richard asked me just to share really about how Jesus Christ has changed my life. I'm 28 years old. Some of the stuff I'm going to share with you, I'm quite ashamed of now. So I don't think I'm trying to glorify anything I'm saying. I'm quite ashamed of some of the stuff I've done in my life. So when I was 2 years old, my mum died of cancer. I had a younger brother who was 4 months old. I had an older sister who was 9 and an older brother who was 7. So my dad had 4 kids to take care of. And just before that, about 2 years previous, my uncle became a Christian. He's a professional footballer, out of nowhere became a Christian. Everyone thinks he's crazy, don't know what's going on. And then slowly but surely, not long after that, my dad became a Christian. Then a year after that, my nan, my auntie, and my granddad, and then my other auntie all became Christians. And this was a year just before my mum died. And so then, about a month before my mum died, she also became a Christian as well. So my dad's left with 4 kids, and basically, he asked my nan, my auntie, and my granddad to come in and raise us as well. So effectively, I grew up in a Christian home. So even with that itself, for me, is a miracle as well. So I grew up with this, you know, going to church. That was just normal for me and our family. You know, and people always say, "Oh, I found church really boring." For me, it was just what we did. So I didn't know anything different. I didn't know this is what we did. Then I went through primary school. It was not a problem. Then I got to high school. It became a bit weird. Because yeah, my friends, like the circle of people that I hang around with, you know, church and Christianity was not really on. When I was a kid, Simpsons was on, so Ned Flanders, that was the kind of, that's what a Christian was. So I tried to get away from that as quickly as I could. I wasn't the worst kid by all means, but I wasn't the best either. So in my 5 years, I was actually on 4 report cards, which was strange really when I look back, because my upbringing was fantastic, but I just had this rebellion in me, don't know what it was. That happened all the way through to college. And so with college I started going, probably like your age now, I started going out and drinking a lot with my friends, going to nightclubs and things like that. And the girls on the scene as well then. And for some reason, I fell in love with boxing, love boxing. Still do actually. But I don't know how I work that out in Christianity, I love it. But yeah, so we get into fights and things like that when we out and nights out, and that was just what we did. We just went out and boxed room. We weren't getting with girls, we probably were fighting. It was a good night. I went home and went to bed. That was you know, it wasn't really like that for me. And then I went to university and I thought, you know what, this is the chance to be the real Matthew Cliff. This is the chance to be the real me now. Not to, you know, to go to church now and again just to appease me nan and my granddad and my auntie and my dad, just to show, you know. But then now when I was at university, I had a chance to be the real me. I went to Sheffield Hallam University. I didn't step foot into church once when I was there. I actually failed my first year at university. I failed my first module. You'll need 40%. It's actually harder to do than pass it. I managed it. So I never went to university at all, hardly. One event was, that sticks out, I got into a fight with a pizza delivery man, of all people. That's quite sad now, but I damaged him quite badly. And I remember I was so drunk on St. Patrick's Day, and I ran into my room, because it was near my halls, and got into bed and pretended I was asleep. I don't know why. The police just knocked on the door. I'm like, you know, we'll leave you alone now, you need to come before us in the next few days. The police station was actually only just across the road. And so I went at 19 years old, sat in the police station thinking, you know, my dad's a pastor of the church, you know, he finds out of this, it's just, my life was just a mess. And I went in and I said, you know, he said, listen, the guy wants to press charges against you. I was like, right, okay. But he said, the woman said to me, you've been very lucky because the camera that's normally facing that way on the street was facing another way. So essentially, there's no evidence per se. So we're just going to give you a caution. Great. So I just walked free and basically, again, did exactly the same what I was doing before, just going out, didn't think anything of it. Sorry, before, when I actually in the police station, I was praying there and saying, get me out of this. Sorry for wearing that thing, just get me out of this. You know, and I got out of it. So I ended up quitting university, restart my first year, my second year, and then quit in my third year. I'm back home. And I worked out pretty quickly. I remember thinking, okay, I'm never going to be as clever as all these people now at university and all these jobs, but one thing I can control is how hard I work. So I can work harder than them. So I worked that out pretty quickly, and would literally just grab my backside off. I just work and work and work. I'd work from like 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night, every night. Work for my dad's company. And then, you know, I'd still go out on the weekends. I lived like a weekend millionaire, so I spent all my money on the weekends, getting into trouble and things like that. I remember I had another altercation with some bouncers in my nightclub. My friends got put in the back of one police car. I was in one on my own. Again, I remember praying, I said, get me out of this. I'll stop. Get me out of it. So we took my other friends went to the police station, and this police car I was in, they took me over to Tesco car park. It was a pitch black car park. I was thinking, and they got out the car, the 2 policemen, what are they going to do here? They're going to beat me up. And they just opened the car and said, like, you got. I was just like, okay. Sort of cheaply went out and I just ran. So yeah, that was another, another thinking, what is going on here? But I wasn't going to church, I was going on again, but I wasn't going, per se. And then, finally, I got into another fight really, that really changed a lot for me. I was fighting 3 lads instead of 1, which is never a good sign. And I got punched on the back of the head, I smashed my head open on the floor. I put my head up and then ambulance came and got me. I remember I woke up in the hospital and I just ran out of the hospital. I think I was still rich as well as concussed. Not a good combination. I ran out and I remember I went straight home, went to bed. And I got a knock on my door in the morning. I said, Matthew, the policeman outside the house. Suddenly this lifestyle I was living, I brought to the front door now. So it was they all knew about it, there was no one here. It was there for everyone to see. It was just Sunday morning as well, so they're all in their best gear, getting ready to go to church. And I opened the door, bedroom door, blood all over my face, swollen and all this type of stuff. And I remember thinking there and I looked at me now, who's just sat in a seat, brought me up tremendously. And I was just absolutely devastated by the way my life had gone. I couldn't change. I wanted to, couldn't do it. And again, so that but my work life was actually going really well. I was literally I've got 6 months to start my own business. Looking forward to that. I thought, right, if I can get successful, I'll just take care of everything. And I was a week away from taking over my new business, which I actually did start up. And my friend came to me and I do it, so can I have a chat with you? My second thoughts, I thought, yeah, no problem. And I woke up, it was a normal day, played 5-a-side, I said, we'll go for a Costa coffee. I'm not going to the office, we'll just get away from it and we'll start a chat. So I'm sat down with my mate and he's talking to me. It's a lad I went to university with, done a lot of things, shamefully done a lot of things with him. We're talking, he says, I have one second thoughts about this and that. I said, okay. He says, and also I've got loads of questions about Jesus as well. What? I'm like, what are you talking about? He starts asking all these questions and I give him all these answers. Which was mad. But in Costa Coffee, I really felt a sense of the Lord said to me, I'll give you the words if you trust me. When I tell people now when I met Jesus in Costa Coffee, I think I'm crazy. I went to a bar, was actually just yesterday, I came here, but I said, I'm just studying down the road, and he said, how did you become a Christian? I said, well, I met Jesus in Costa Coffee. Okay. But then, from there, I'd give my mate my Bible, so you need to read that. Went to work on my own, just cleaning it up. And I didn't know any Christian speakers. Quite a famous one called Billy Graham. I put up a sermon up by him on YouTube. He says it's about choices. He says he writes about making choices. He said all through the Bible, people make choices. Moses, Abraham, making choices for their life. And he says to me, he said, you've got to make a choice. Choose this day who you're going to serve. And I'm thinking, Lord, I want to change. I want to change my life, but I can't do it. When I go to church in the past, I'd say, I want to change. I want to do it in my own strength. And this time I just broke down to tears and said, you've got to come and change. I can't do it. I have no ability within myself. I need you to come and change. That was 4 years ago, I prayed that prayer, and he has radically changed my life. I can tell you stuff what's happened in between that time. I actually ended up shutting my business down. Went to LST, Richard, the next student president, average student president just last year. It's just absolutely insane what's gone through in my life in 4 years. Spoken in different places, been on trips. I'm here now with you. All this, because Jesus Christ changed my life. I have no other explanation for that. He is it for me. I could affirm everything that Richard just said, and when I was in my other state, when I was going out with lads, I could say, yeah, it's true. But there's a difference, there's a connection. If you've got to ask him to come and change your life, you can't do it by yourself. And he will, because he loves you and he's faithful to you.